How's everybody doing? I am joined by Laurel Spider today. How are you doing, Laurel?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. So, how long have you been practicing magic for?
Yeah, I've been practicing actively for about 7 or 8 years, I want to say. And before then, I was practicing without so much care or activity.
Understandable. That's a long time. So, what got you interested in the first place?
What got me interested is that I really wanted something, and there was a God that refused to give it to me. So I figured that's okay. I'll go somewhere else. There will be someone who will give me what I want. And they did.
It's interesting how many of us have a similar story. What are some of your favorite types of workings to do?
Yeah, I really like obsession workings and binding workings.
Mm.
Um, I don't do curses very often, but when I do, they're very fun for me to work with. Um, and I don't know, that's kind of really my favorite stuff. I do other stuff, of course, too, though.
Makes sense that someone associated with spiders would like binding spells.
Yeah.
I've worked with Arachne some and learned some pretty interesting binding spells from her. What are some of your least favorite types of workings? Do you have any?
Um, I don't really like money workings very much or similar like I want this. I mean, I do them sometimes. I do want things,
Mhm.
but they're not really my favorite to participate with.
Okay, that's understandable. Prosperity magic is kind of like it's something I'll do when I need it, but it's not something I'm keeping up on constantly.
Yeah.
I could take it or leave it. Same with love magic. It's kind of like I'm already in a relationship, and whenever somebody wants me to do it for them, they always want a specific person,
I
and that
know.
person is almost never the right choice for them, so it gets messy.
Yeah.
And what sort of things inspire you to do magic? If you're just sitting around, maybe like a film or a book or something that happens in nature, what sort of things inspire you to do magic?
My immediate reaction when you asked that was anger. Um,
Okay,
no, there are definitely books too. I like to read a lot of fantasy type literature,
same.
um, or even just like the poems and short stories and stuff. And I think that they have really interesting like mirrors, I guess, or
Yeah.
portals into like the type of magic that we actually do.
Mhm.
Even TV shows, I usually try and find like something fantasy. I'm like, these can teach me something about my craft. And it's not like the overuse of bright, colorful like magic.
Mhm.
Um, but they do teach some lessons that I think are interesting and applicable.
Absolutely. Yeah. I find inspiration in literature and stuff as well. And like you said, it's not always the really overt, like, oh, I'm casting a fireball. It's the way they handle a situation, or it's a phrase that they use that'll just sort of knock something loose for me. Who were some of your greatest influences, if you don't mind sharing? Even obviously, this whole time you don't have to talk about anything current. Maybe things from your past, if you'd like to share that maybe influenced you to do magic, other than um, you know the silence of God or a man in the clouds that was supposed to help but didn't.
I'm not very, very big on reading like our occult texts and stuff.
Mhm.
And so I don't really have any people that have tremendously influenced me that are like famous or notorious from our sphere.
Okay,
Um, it's mostly people in the mundane world who have not given me things that I've asked for or
I see.
wanted. And that's really been where a lot of it comes from for me.
Okay. I think we could use more practitioners that aren't obsessed with external ways of doing things. So much of this is an art, and so much about art is expressing your own personal experiences. So that resonates with me a lot. If you wouldn't mind discussing maybe what some of your greatest strengths are when it comes to art or practice.
I think that some of my greatest strengths with magic and even in the mundane world
Mhm.
are bindings because I really think it's fascinating to manipulate people, which
Mhm.
is absolutely horrible to say. Um,
You're preaching to the choir here. I work with Paimon for puppetry, so
yeah.
No offense taken here.
Right. Um, but that's really what I like doing. It interests me. I've been doing it for a long time. It's not exactly where I started out, but it's a lot of it too.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. And is there any areas, feel free to just pass on this question. Are there any areas that you could use more work in, or not necessarily a weakness, but somewhere that you think every time you go to do it, it's like, oh man, I forgot I was going to study more about this.
Absolutely. I have a whole collection of those.
Okay.
And they're really just areas that I don't view as like as important to me,
Mhm,
either because they're not as interesting to me or
mhm.
because I don't need them really.
Right.
Um, Wealth castings, prosperity castings are some of those. I've toyed around with a couple. They're kind of fun, but not what I like doing, and I'm not as good at them as I know some other people definitely are.
Sure.
Um, I don't, there's the voodoo, the entire practice scares me. Um,
Yeah.
I'm interested. It looks beautiful, but
Mhm.
I'm terrified.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's understandable. Somewhere between it being a closed practice most of the time and the way that Hollywood has portrayed it, it terrifies a lot of people. That's not something that I have any experience with myself either. It's something I'd love to learn, but it's just like I wouldn't know where to start or where to go to learn something like that.
yeah.
Okay. And what are some entities that you are working with now or that you've worked with in the past that you wouldn't mind sharing with us that really
Yeah.
helped propel your practice forward?
So I've been working with Dantalion as a spirit
Okay.
that is,
Good one.
recognized for the longest. Um, I, I needed something, and my question was, who's going to come and help me fix my problem? And he answered the call, and so I've been working with him since then.
No
Um,
wonder.
I also work with Citri a lot.
Okay.
Quite fun. He's terrifying, terrifies me routinely, but so fun.
That's good though, right? Keeps you nice and fresh.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
sorry to interject here. Usually when I hear the name sea tree, it's tied to affection or love magic.
mhm.
So, what else would sea tree be used for if you don't mind sharing that with us?
Yeah. So he is very scary, I think, in general. I do curse work with him sometimes.
Okay.
I do bindings with him.
Okay.
I hold rituals for other people with him. And he has presented himself to me as someone who heals as well,
Okay.
which I find really, really interesting because it's not what anybody really has to publish about him.
Right.
Yeah, he said that to me a year or so ago first, and then I was in a possession ritual with him a little while back,
Mhm.
and he fixed like a problem that I've been having for years in about 3 seconds. I haven't had the problem since.
Wow. It's amazing the kind of insight they have sometimes. It's like they can just push a button and it's just like,
Yeah,
oh, doop, there it goes.
yeah,
So is possession something that you would like to talk to us a little bit about? That's not
I
something
love
I've covered on
possession
this channel.
rights.
Okay, go ahead.
Sometimes they're a little bit scary and
Hmm.
uncomfortable,
Hmm.
but I think they're a lot of fun, and I think that we can learn a lot from them. Especially from the way that the demons kind of think, or
Hmm.
a similar word to that applies to them,
Hmm.
um, and the way that they express themselves in our world.
Right.
So Dantalion is really the only one who doesn't make me immediately uncomfortable when we do possession rites, and it could be because of like the long stretch of time that I've been working with him.
Hmm.
Cetri absolutely terrifies me when we do possession rites. It is so uncomfortable, and it is a wild experience. Furcolor is another one who I've
Hmm.
had possess me, and he goes, "No, I don't like this. It's uncomfortable for me."
Sure. To be in a physical, hard material body,
Yeah.
probably, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've got some experience with possessions myself, only with my familiars. I'm not just like going around calling everything in, but there are certain ones, it's almost like I've got a hot coal like sitting on my chest, or it's like I can't sit still and I'm super fidgety. But it's the ones that I'm most familiar with, like Azazel and Paimon. It's just like I'm talking to a friend or something, and I think from my experience, it might have something to do with the fact that you're already sort of attuned to their frequency and their energy, so it's not like trying to put a triangle through a square block
Yeah.
so much. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it definitely
Mhm,
does. Some of them I get some like really, really physical feelings with.
mhm, mhm,
And Furcalor is he's uncomfortable and I can feel it. Um, and the way that your body or my body moves when I'm possessed is not right. It's distinctly not what it should be doing.
mhm.
Yeah. So that's always interesting.
So this is super personal. Feel free to skip this. When you don't have to share like your specific technique, but when you go into a possession ritual or a rite, is it something where you just do like an invocation at a stronger level, or do you just completely let go, and just like sort of let your body and your mouth do whatever it wants to do until it happens, or something in between?
Yeah, it's a little bit in between. It also depends on the spirit.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, true. Good point.
because I don't trust them all equally.
Mhm,
Um, and I do like possession rights. I think they're a great, like, get to know you, which is,
mhm.
I don't think that's safe, but it is
Yeah,
what it
most
is.
people probably wouldn't be safe doing that, but you're at a level of practice that you know what should and shouldn't happen more or less, I think.
Yeah. Citri, I know, I'll say, like, let's do possession, and then he will not leave unless he wants to.
Okay, that is scary.
Um, Dantalion will do a possession, and we do them very casually. I'll either be, sitting or laying down. I don't like to be standing up for these types of things.
Mhm. Yeah.
And usually I'll say like a recitation or something, and some of them, are just the ends, and some of them I
Mhm.
have like very personal scripts for.
Mhm.
And oftentimes I'll just hold out my hand like palm up, and we'll kind of start the possession that way, and they'll just kind of like bleed through into me, I guess.
Interesting. That's a pretty original technique. I like that. So, what are some recommended practices that you might recommend for like an intermediate level practitioner?
For what?
Like recommended practices for like a beginner or intermediate level practitioner?
Okay. So I think meditation is an important place to start, even though a lot of us refuse to play that game. I have very poor meditation habits, but I didn't when I was starting out. I was
Mhm.
committed,
Mhm.
and I think that has been good for me. And then I think energy work is very important. It's a lot
Yes.
of where I started, and I think that everybody can gain from it because so much of the effects that we have, especially regarding other people, can be traced back to just the pure energy work of it. And learning about how those things work and how to manipulate them is really very helpful, I think.
Absolutely. I think that energy work and visualization are two of the most underrated practices that will just propel somebody forward. When I learned to link what I was seeing with what I was feeling, it was like a lightning bolt. It was like the worlds just connected and I became one being during a ceremony. And ever since then, I try to tie energy work and visualization and with whatever I'm doing. And
Yeah.
visualization is sort of a form of meditation in a sense. So yeah, awesome. Any difficulties that you've had since you have once you got to the point of being comfortable as a practitioner in retrospect, were there any difficulties that
Every
you every day? Okay. All right.
I think
Any go ahead.
I think that the magic and the mundane, I think that they're really the same thing for practitioners who are serious about what they do, and even people who aren't. It's the same life, and what you're doing on one side of it is affecting the other side of it, no
Absolutely.
matter which side you're playing with.
Mhm.
And so every day I wake up, and any problem that I have, I mean, it's a magic problem and it's a mundane problem, no matter which way I choose to solve it, because I am the person that I am.
Mhm.
Some of the more serious problems that I've had, I mess up my rituals sometimes
We
that
all do.
affect other people, and I
Mhm.
have to fix them. It
Mhm.
is usually not very fun.
Yeah, sometimes you pull on one string and it opens up a completely different ribbon, and then you go to
Oh
tie
yeah.
that one off and it starts affecting it. It's just like, okay, where does this end? Excellent. So how important is silence to you in your practice? Is it overrated, or is it crucial, or somewhere in between?
I think there can always be more silence.
Sure.
Um, in the waking world, quiet is something so scarce, like
Mm,
true silence.
mhm,
And, you know, in the practitioner's world or in ritual, in my practice, I always try to start and close with silence. And I can't always get, silent, silent. I do live where there are cars driving by and everything.
mhm,
Um, but I think it's very important to start there and to close there for me personally. That's just a practice that I've been in since I began. Is I would sit down and I used to like really meditate before any ritual I would have,
mhm,
before and after. And then I would sit and I would take my notes and everything.
mhm.
Um, but I think that in silence, we're really with ourselves the most, and we are ourselves the most. I have locked myself, well, not locked, but I've shut myself in a closet before to like be in the dark and in the quiet and figure things out, both magic and mundane. And I think that something more people need to do is just turn out the lights and sit down and turn off the music and turn off the TV and just be with themselves and focus on who they are and their goals and how they're going to get there. I think silence is beautiful.
I agree with all of that 100%. So much of our daily lives is just about being bombarded with external influence, and when you shut off that influence, there's still something there, and that something is you. And the more space you give it, the more of you it can fill. Is sort of the way that I think about it.
Yeah.
Hmm. What are some things to avoid as a practitioner?
Self-loathing.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
Um, that's I think my top one is if you don't like who you are, you got to fix that first.
Mhm.
All of your magic is going to go sideways. You're never going to have anything you want, and you're filling yourself with illusions. You got to like who you are.
Mhm.
At least a bearable amount, before you can get anywhere, I think, with real magic. Because
Right.
otherwise you're just going around in circles with the self-hatred and it's not
Mhm.
gonna work out.
Right. You're just getting in your own way if you're
Yeah.
if you're not able to forgive yourself. Okay. How is magic and sorcery, or this esoteric practice, different people prefer different nomenclature. How is this practice viewed in your area for the most part?
Yeah, so personally, I wait about 3 months before telling people that I'm into witchcraft and the occult.
Mhm.
I like to know what their base values are. I like to know
Mhm.
what kind of people they are. I like to know what they do when they're upset with other people or people
Yeah.
they don't respect.
Uh-huh.
Um, I don't have many bad experiences
Mhm.
after I tell people, oh, I'm into witchcraft. Some
Mhm.
people really can't stand it. And I go, do you know how many things in my life I want and I don't have? And they go, no, how many? And I go, none, absolutely none.
Right.
I've I have one thing right now that I want and don't have. I'm like, how
Mhm.
many things do you want? How many things do you not have that you want?
And how many
They
things
freak
are
out a
you
little bit.
doing? And how many things are they doing that is witchcraft that they don't recognize?
That too. Yeah.
Right.
We have that conversation too, and it makes them very uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, every time. Yeah, I was raised Christian, and looking back at some of the like Presbyterian and Baptist and Catholic ceremonies, it's like you guys know you're doing magic, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, what are some ways to recognize that you might be under magical attack or under assault?
So personally, I
Mhm.
never thought that I was going to have any problems until I had a very big problem.
Ooh.
Um, so I set up a system, and I get like notifications kind of when something
Interesting.
hits one of my like wards.
Uh-huh.
And that's how I know that something's wrong. And then I'll pull cards about it maybe, or I'll ask a friend, hey, do you think something's going on? Um, I don't usually have any problems that I feel are significant enough that they warrant my
Mhm.
attention.
Mhm.
Um, I do have a couple spirits that I'm in agreements with, um, that will let me know of problems and handle them
Mhm.
for me.
Mhm.
So unless you have a system, I think that sends you kind of an alert that it's been hit, or a friend that lets you know, I'm not sure really how other
Okay.
people do that.
Hmm. Personally, what you say about notifications resonates very deeply with me because I actually program my wards to notify me in very specific ways. Somebody will say a specific word to me, or a specific animal will come to my porch, or some certain song will come on the radio. So what you say about notifications was like, uh, what are some, other than having, familiars and spirits and wards, are there any other ways that you protect yourself from magical assault?
Um,
Some people use crystals, some people use
oh,
like smudging and stuff like that.
okay. So I do have crystals. I think they're
Mhm,
very pretty. They are
mhm.
all
I do
around my
too.
temple.
Me too.
Um, I don't think, programmed any of them except for the obsidian underneath like the ritual mirror that I now keep,
Mhm.
for protection or for anything. Some of them do belong to certain spirits. I do have an egregor who is guardian of the temple.
Nice.
Um, he'll eat things that come in uninvited.
Ooh, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah, so I don't really try to like upkeep good practices and to know what's going on mostly.
Yeah, general temple hygiene and stuff goes a long way too. I love the idea of a guardian temple egregore because it almost feeds itself. It's almost self-sustaining, especially if you're a baneful or somewhat left-handed practitioner. You're always going to have something sort of knocking on the door. I love
Yeah.
that idea of like a self-sufficient guard dog. So, what are some mistakes that you've made that you could perhaps share with us? I know you've sort of talked about that a little bit, but is there anything that comes to mind when I say mistake?
Yeah. Recently I wanted something from a person, and I did a binding ritual. Or it
Mhm.
wasn't even a ritual.
Mhm.
And I messed it up twice.
Oof.
And I could immediately see the effects. And
Ooh.
I thought, oh, this is a huge problem. And I had to fix my problem
Mhm.
twice. And I did not learn. I did it a third time. We'll see how that's going in a little while.
I'll
It's
be sure
been
to keep
going for a
tabs on that.
while.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so I mean, I commend you for not just giving up when you failed at something or when you messed something up. We learn by messing up and, working through the adversity of the consequences. So I commend you for that. Are
I've
there
definitely had
any?
other problems too.
Okay.
I've invited spirits to my temple that were not pleasant to have around. Um, and you think that they're like really, really exaggerating in the movies and stuff until you kind of have a scary experience.
Hmm.
And then it's like, yeah, that's an exaggeration. They're blowing things out of proportion, but by how much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the inspiration to write that scene came from somewhere. So when you say it's not pleasant, do you mean like you get nauseated? Do you mean like how is it? Just some examples of how it might not be pleasant to warn people not to just start invoking shit that they're not used to.
Yeah. Anything that threatens you, like right out of the gates,
Hmm.
is probably not going to be fun to have around.
Hmm.
And I've had, like friends threaten me in temple before, and I'm like, no, you're just joking. You need to tone it down. I don't appreciate this, but it's not
Hmm.
scary. Some things will come in and just begin with the threats. And
Right.
that's like, you gotta go. You're not supposed to be here. I don't want you here. You gotta go. sometimes the candles will start doing really strange things,
Hmm. Yeah.
very strange things. Yeah,
Like flames rising out of nowhere or
yeah,
spinning in circles.
I've seen
I have
that.
too. I have too.
Yeah.
So, anything else in regard to that?
Things might tip over,
Hmm.
which is startling.
Hmm.
Especially, like you're in a quiet space, you got only candles on.
Hmm.
It's you and whatever you've invited, and then things will start falling or it'll sound like something's shaking. Um, I don't usually get nauseous with like things that aren't invited. I've definitely gotten nauseous with Citri and Furfler before. I think they just have like a stronger, more dark energy than I'm usually used to, even with things that I do call.
Right.
So that's not one for me, but the it'll feel like maybe I'm being like tapped or like something's trying to pull on me sometimes.
Interesting.
I'll have to evaluate whether that's like someone that I invited in or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know the first time I ever worked with glaciolabalus, I almost got physically ill. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because I thought their name was weird or I didn't like their seal, but I went to work with them the first time and it was like ugh, like my face
Yeah.
just went green and I was just like, okay, this needs to hurry up and get done with that. I forget, I think I was just invoking them for a client, and then it was just like, okay, this needs to get done as soon as possible because I am going to get sick and I don't want to be running out of the circle in my temple to get sick and I don't want to throw up in my temple.
Right. No, I had that experience. Once with Cedric, it was the first time ever that I had called him. It was very
Mhm.
scary. I was
Mhm.
like, oh my God, I'm dying right here tonight, right now. I'm gonna throw up in my dorm room and then I'm gonna die here.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And
I'm always, yeah, go
Glaciolobulus,
ahead.
I was laying down. I was like face down, laying down during that ritual. I was like, something is wrong and I cannot do this.
Interesting. Okay. So I wonder if there's just something about them that is just intense like that. Um, yeah, that's interesting. One of my things is I'm always worried that like I'm gonna die young and people are gonna be like, oh, it's because he was working with demons. But it's like people die every day young who work with angels who don't work with demons. You know what I mean? It's like I'm trying to open this craft up to people to so they can find balance.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, there's always something that's like, oh, you got to be careful so you don't die, so you don't give the left-hand path a bad name. You know what I mean? So are there any books, literature or films that you would recommend to other practitioners? I know you said you don't really seek external source, but you did mention that sometimes really mundane circumstances can be influential to you.
Yeah. So I do have like one book that I'm into, and it
Hmm.
is a Peruvian historical text. I am
Interesting.
Peruvian, partly.
Okay. Okay.
So I have that, and it's very interesting. They talk about a lot of the traditions and things.
Okay.
So I recommend traditional books, like anybody who has certain traditions that they're tied to or very interested in. I recommend that people either find like the academia version of what they're looking for, because those people have, as biased as they may be, they have put in a lot of time and talked to real people
Mhm.
usually. And then I recommend kids things, children's TV and
Love it.
books. And that's mostly it. I do watch some adult, of course I
Mhm.
do, but a lot of the magic is found where there are children, I think.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I think that using those kinds of shows and stories is an interesting resource.
Yeah, I love that idea because it's like the adult that can still connect to the child still has some connection to that magic. So I love that. I have nieces and I love watching like children's movies and cartoons and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
I watch cartoons sometimes just because I like cartoons, but seeing some of the films that are coming out nowadays are really interesting and really inspiring, and they have a level of inspiration in them that you can't find elsewhere.
yeah.
So, all right, I guess this is the last question I have planned, but we can chat for as long as you want. what are some things you'd like to learn in the future, perhaps?
Yeah, I would like to learn, I don't know, kinds of magic that I'm not very well versed in.
Hmm.
So I'm not quite ready to be like, yes, I'm gonna try my best to learn voodoo. That's like, we're not there yet. But to learn like little bits of knowledge from people who have these practices and things on, I don't know, something that's like very different to what I do. And I'm not entirely sure what that is because, it's not something that I'm familiar with, but
Right.
I'm interested in learning about what I don't know,
Hmm.
most of all. And also about fear in magic, because I don't think fear is like usually a healthy thing in magic.
Hmm.
But I do think that it has some very interesting lessons.
I
So
agree with
you
that.
gotta be careful without like being wildly unsafe, but like walking the line a little bit. I think it'll be interesting.
Absolutely. I think that what you said is very wise. Fear doesn't often have a place in magic, but I found when it comes to shadowcraft, a lot of times the things that terrify me are a gate straight into the shadow, things that I've repressed or suppressed. So sometimes I don't intentionally evoke a sense of fear in myself in ceremony, but sometimes if it happens, I'll lean into it a little bit and see where
Yeah.
it leads. Hmm,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, was there anything else that you think I missed or that you might have wanted to cover?
I don't think so. I think, oh, the other spirit I work with
I'm sorry.
closely is
Yeah,
Beware. I'm
love him.
learning from him
Hmm.
and I am being taught a lot.
Hmm.
Um, it's crazy. I don't read a lot of books and things, but he'll say something and it is something that you can look up online and be like, yes, this correspondence is this. It
Hmm.
is insane. It is so
Absolutely.
uncomfortable, but so fun.
It gets a little too real sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I love Blair for herbalism. He's been teaching me about entheogens and different plant chemicals to get me deeper into trance. And some of the herbs that I never would have thought that he's told me about, when you combine them together, they have like a cocktail effect that is really surprising. So I love Blair. I've actually got a candle on my altar that's lit right now that has his seal on it. So yeah, yeah, you said the Italian, Sea Tree, and Beware, right? Or like the three that
Yeah.
you work with the
And then I
most?
work with Furcolor some too. We've
Oh,
got
that's right.
an
Yeah.
ongoing agreement. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I have a
Those are
dragon
all
friend.
okay. Was
Yeah.
that something that you wouldn't mind talking about?
I don't talk much about it.
That's understandable.
But he's been around for a very long time.
Hmm.
Um, arguably, since before I was in a relationship with Dantalion.
Okay.
But the dragons work very differently than the glacial spirits do. So
Hmm.
I don't really go to them for, hey, fix this problem. I want this thing. First, I feel like that'd be disrespectful. And second, it's not in the way that they work. It's very out of flow, I think,
Sure.
what they do usually.
Yeah. My experience with the draconic current, and I'm not even sure we're talking about the same current when you say dragons and I say the draconic current, but any dragons that I've worked with, it's been more like I have this issue, like take it from me and destroy it. Like I give my vices to them as an offering.
Mhm.
And like I sort of ask for transformation. So it's less manifestation with the dragons for me and more about transformation. Does that resonate with you?
So I think that we are talking about like different dragon types.
Okay.
But I understand exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
And I don't know that I've definitely given like offerings of that type before.
Hmm.
Dantalion will come and I'll say, hey, I'm feeling angry. And he'll just make it go away.
Hmm.
It'll just vanish.
Hmm.
Sea I offer people to be like, I
Interesting.
don't want this person. Can you have them?
I
Um,
love it.
it works very well. It is scary, but it works.
Hey, if it works, that's right. Awesome. Well, I appreciate the hell out of you coming on here and talking with us. Is there any websites or anything that you'd like to mention before we close the call?
Yes, so I do have one website. It is Magic of Spiders, or it is wordpress.magicofspiders.com, and the magic is with a K. But it's not a very functional site currently.
That is all right. I will, if you want me to, I can put that link in the description, and then people can get a hold of you. Or if you want to send me, actually, you already sent me your email. If you want me to put your email, I can put that in the description. Then if people want to contact you for any services or anything that you might provide, they can do that.
Yeah, you can put my email in for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again. I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Thank you. Have a good week.
Awesome. You too. Take care.
Bye.